Hi, I'm Devin Moore, your host for Humanity Rising's Race to Speak Up podcast and founder of hashtag Race to Speak Up, an anti-bullying organization. The Race to Speak Up podcast is a place where we have open and engaging conversations about bullying prevention, how to be upstanders, and how we are making a positive change in our communities. So the question now is, how do you race to speak up? Hello and welcome to the Race to Speak Up podcast. I'm your host, Devin Moore. Today's guest is Dr. Janet Awokoya, also known as Dr. J. Dr. J is the CEO of Dr. J's Lounge, LLC, a racial, ethnic, and cross-cultural educational coaching and training company that provides professional development workshops to individuals, educational institutions, nonprofits, and corporations. Dr. J is a Nigerian American scholar activist and educator who is deeply committed to improving the educational opportunities and outcomes of all students, particularly children of color and people with disabilities. Some Black Girls Don't Sit Together in the Cafeteria is Dr. J's flagship novel. It addresses the triple condemnation of being Black, an immigrant, and a young girl in the United States while navigating various sociocultural contexts, identities, and expectations from abroad. Welcome, Dr. J. How are you doing?
I am blessed and highly favored. How are you?
I'm doing very good. I am happy to be speaking with you today.
Likewise, it's good to see you again, Devin.
It's good to see you too. So
Thank
you're
you.
the you're the CEO of Dr. J's Lounge. Why don't you tell us about it?
All right, so Dr. J's Lounge was actually created when we were during the pandemic. I wanted a space to share my research on the experiences of immigrant youth, specifically the 1.5 and second generation. And what that refers to are children who were born outside of the US. So in my case, Nigeria, and they come to the US under the age of 12 and are raised here. They are the 1.5 generation. And the second generation are immigrant children that are born and raised in the US. So my research, explored their identity experiences, coming to how did they come to understand being Nigerian, Yoruba, Black, African American in the US. And it had been, I've been publishing from my dissertation. I finished my dissertation in 2009 from the University of Maryland, College Park. And I've been publishing from my work in the Harvard Ed Review and different articles, journal articles, and book chapters. And it was fine, but I really wanted to get my research out there in more accessible ways. I wanted parents, community members, students to better understand what was happening with young people in schools, immigrant children in particular in schools, and start to really address these issues in more meaningful ways. Because the reality was, what I saw was that, even though it had been, since 2009 that I published this work, these same issues were still happening in schools around colorism, around xenophobia, just the bullying that happens, and they weren't being addressed in proper ways. And so I wanted a space. I wanted to find a space, and with the pandemic, we all turned online. So I wanted to create a space to start sharing my research and to start having courageous conversations around these very serious issues that are impacting identity development and the academic experiences of immigrant youth and all students actually in US schools.
That's very interesting. And another way that you're really sharing your research and really sharing this understanding of identity, African identity, and bullying is through your book called Some Black Girls Don't Sit Together in the Cafeteria. So what
Yes, that's
inspired
right.
you to write this book and what is it about?
All right, so well, the inspiration came from my dissertation. Like I said, I had been publishing in different journal articles and book chapters for some years, and it was fine. And I was presenting at conferences, and it was fine. The work was getting around, but it wasn't getting to the people that really needed it: the teachers, the students. And so they won't. I don't. You don't know very many students going to pick up journal articles, some very highly ambitious ones, but you don't see them many high school students or college students. Well, some college students, but high school, you don't see them very often searching out journal articles. And so, but I wanted the work to get to them. So I decided to, take my work a little bit further and fictionalize the stories, and make it more digestible and shorter. The attention spans these days are not not very long for people, unfortunately. So it's a quick read. It's less than 45 pages. But each chapter highlights different issues that the young character Sheyi, it's a young girl named Oluwaseyi Adebayo. She comes from Nigeria, and she comes to the US at 8 years old, and she grows up here. And we start to experience some of her issues around people, talking about her dark skin, insulting her for being African, making fun of her African food in schools when she eats in the cafeteria. She longs to be accepted by the African American students at her school, but she feels rejected by them because of her difference, because she's African. And so I take the time to walk the reader through Shay's experiences to help them understand, how she feels as she's being rejected in some cases, loved in some cases, by her peers because she's different, because she's immigrant, because she's Nigerian. And a lot of it comes from a lot of the ignorance and the bullying that Shay experiences in the school is because of the negative media portrayals of Africans that has been portrayed and perpetuated in the US psyche, the US media, the global media for centuries. When I think about Tarzan, when I think about the safari images, the wild African jungles, and no contextualization. It used to scare people. You think about Joseph Conrad, The Heart of Darkness, the way that Africans were portrayed as villains and savages. We were scary. We were seen as very scary. And so that's the image that many people have of Africans, even to this day. And so you have young African immigrants, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, looking forward to opportunities in the US, and they're being insulted and bullied for being dark-skinned. They're being threatened and harassed for eating their traditional African foods like ogbono soup and eba, or ogbono soup and amala, or jollof rice and dodo. Hey, these are delicious, nutritious meals, though. But these kids are harassed. They're harassed in schools. They're bullied. They're insulted. Their languages are berated. They're told to quit speaking that gibberish, around us. So it makes the students feel. It makes Shay feel disconnected. It makes her feel like she doesn't belong with people who look like her. Right? We're supposed to be together as Black people, but her African American peers are telling her that she's not Black enough. She's not Black. What does that mean? She's like, this woman is coming from Africa. This young girl's coming from Africa, and you're telling her she's not Black enough. But what they mean by that is that they have an understanding of what it means to be African American. Their understanding is based on. See, one of the things that's often missing in these conversations is that people don't understand the diversity of Black people in the US. Do you know that, Devin?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Have you heard of the African diaspora? You know what that means?
I've heard about it looking at some of the things or a lot of the things that you've been doing. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so diaspora, what does diaspora mean? Diaspora means dispersal. It means dispersal. So we're talking about the dispersal of African people from the continent of Africa. That is the African diaspora, right? So, we started to see migrations of African people, about 8,000 BCE. There was the internal migration from people moving from Northern Africa to Southern and Eastern parts of the continent. And then about 8th and 9th century CE, we saw the trans-Saharan African slave trade, where we saw Africans forcibly removed to the Mediterranean, to different parts of Asia as well. And then in the 16th through about the 19th century, this is what the ones that most people know is the trans-Saharan slave trade. And that's the slave trade that you're often taught in school. That's about the only one of the different there's been multiple migrations of Black people through the centuries, but most people know of the trans-Saharan slave trade, where 10 to 20 million African people were forcibly moved, migrated, transported like cargo, like animals, to the New World. They went to Europe, they went to North America, they went to South America. So those are the main slave trades that most people, or migrations that most people are familiar with, right? We talk about the African diaspora. But then in the US, we've had other migrations. We had, after Emancipation Proclamation, we had movement of freed Africans, free Blacks from the South moving to the North, from the East moving to the West. And then post 1965, brother, because before 1965, we didn't see as many Africans coming to the US. Some were coming from independent African nations like Nigeria, from Ghana, coming here to study in the US. But we didn't really see, there weren't large numbers. It wasn't until 1965. Hey, Charlie. Devin, do you know what happened in 1965?
Why don't you tell us?
All right, many things happened in 1965, but the Hart-Celler Act. Look it up, brothers and sisters. 1965, the Hart-Celler Act. It loosened immigration policies that basically favored Northern and Western Europeans that had been coming to the US before. It loosened immigration restrictions and allowed for immigrants from Latin America, from Africa, from Asia, start to come in. They started to come in because the US needed workers. The US needed scientists. The US needed professionals. They needed nurses. They needed doctors. They needed engineers. The US needed workers. And so that policy opened up the restrictions and allowed for more people of color to come to the US. So now you have all these migrations of people, and these people are coming here to work. Oh, hey, we're coming here for opportunity. We're coming here to work. Many of us are coming from developing nations. So we have challenges, economic, political, social challenges that we're coming from. And so we're coming here to work, to support ourselves and to support our families back home, right? So now you have all these different groups of people, some who were brought from the transatlantic slave trade, some who were born and raised here, some who were brought here voluntarily, all end up where? They all end up in the US cafeteria.
Wow.
They all end up in US schools. Yeah, brother. They all end up in US schools. So now, what do they know about each other? What do you know about Africans, Devin?
Not enough, honestly. I know.
Tell the truth. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll be honest, because I went to a predominantly white middle school, and like with what you're saying, I was never really taught about the they did mention the trans-Saharan slave trade. Then the only two Black figures that they mentioned was Martin Luther King and it was Rosa Parks. Yeah, exactly. Rosa Parks. So I never got an understanding of, really both African and African American identity. I never really learned that in the school. So hearing things from people like you who are educating others about the African diaspora, it really opens up this conversation. Well, first it lets us know, wow, they are not teaching enough about this in schools. And that's why I think, we should have more books like yours in schools. Do you think that if we had books like yours in schools, it would open up this conversation of bullying and this conversation of African and African American identity?
Absolutely. I think that, so first with the bullying, I don't think it's discussed enough in schools. I don't think that teachers or parents realize how deep these issues go. You know, what some people could just dismiss as just child, kid banter. Oh, she just called him a black jigaboo. That's nothing. But no, that has historical roots in, negative portrayals of black people as villagers and, uncivilized. So it's not just, oh, these are just light insults. No, these are deep historically embedded issues and racist matters that have yet to be discussed. Yeah, there's seriously racist and xenophobic matters that have yet to be discussed within Black populations specifically. But it all stems from issues around white supremacy. I mean, that's the root of this, is that we have been taught to hate each other. And a lot of it has been perpetuated through the media's negative portrayals of us towards each other. I remember growing up in Nigeria and seeing African Americans portrayed as, just welfare queens and kings and shiftless and without goals or ambitions. That's how they were portrayed, right? And then I remember growing up here and seeing Africans portrayed as, living in jungles, living in huts. This is not to say that these things don't exist. They do. However, it needs to be contextualized. You need to explain the historical issues, the political matters, the structural issues that have created this situation for these people, right? Those things weren't discussed. Those things weren't contextualized for an outsider looking in. And so I wanted a space. I needed a space. I just remember growing up, experiencing these issues. I remember, conducting research, with students, college students, graduate students experiencing these issues. And then even today, recently, we still find issues of kids being bullied and harassed because they're dark skinned, because they're from Africa, because they're whatever. People pick something, people figure out a way to tease you, right? But we're not addressing them in schools. We're not addressing them in our communities. And so I wanted something. I needed a space for my people, my tribe, my community, people who were having these issues to come together and have these conversations with me and with other people to find solutions around these problems, to have open, real conversations, not that whitewash, let's hold hands, kumbaya, and love each other. No. Why did you call her African booty scratcher? Do you realize that is an ethnic slur that describes Africans as diseased and savages? Is that what you mean to say to her when you call that Black queen African booty scratcher? But I'm thankful because conversations have changed, because now we're seeing that African Americans, I actually posted something like this a couple of weeks ago, the same people that were calling us African booty scratchers 20 years ago are now wanting to be African kings or something like that. Because
I get what you mean by that. No, I get what you mean by
that is that I remember, so my participants in my research, they talked about how when they were growing up, people referred to them as with those ethnic slurs like African booty scratcher. They will call them racist. They will be make comments like call them Black B word. I don't know your age group of your participants of your tribe here, but I'm sure they're a wide range. But a Black B word. They use the N word. They would use you're Black is night, can't see you. Just make the first, it's colorism, right? It's all colorism. It's belittling someone because of their dark skin, making them feel less than. So these issues were happening in schools, but like I said, teachers would not know how to deal with it. Instead of explaining that, these students have dark skin because they're from the continent of Africa, they're closer to the equator. This dark skin protects them from the sun. This is a beautiful thing. The darker, the better, honey. Right? These are rich. This is rich melanin in the skin.
Wait, the darker the berry, the sweeter the juice?
Yes, brother.
Yeah.
The darker the berry, the sweeter the juice. And honey is sweet, though. It's sweet. But instead of emphasizing the beauty of dark skin, right? It's dismissed. They don't talk about it, or like, oh, be quiet. It's shushed. I'm like, no, sister, we got to unpack that. We have to unpack the historical issues here, how Black people have been portrayed through white supremacy, through the media, through the global media, as inferior, as diseased, as uneducated, as uncivilized. That's how, as animalistic. Think about it. I don't have to tell you. Google it yourself. Over the years, you can see how we've been portrayed. And so this has entered the minds of young people and adults who see us like this, and they treat us. Why do you, look at how people are being killed, how Black people are being killed left and right. Why do you think that is? Because there's a fear of Black people. It's called xenophobia. Google it. It's called xenophobia. There's a fear of Black people that goes from centuries ago, because people have been trained to fear dark skin. So these issues have to be unpacked. And so I created Dr. J's Lounge as a space to begin unpacking these conversations with students, with professionals, with teachers. I have a parent group workshop coming up in February. I have a student, I'm meeting with Wheaton High School this next week to talk with their some of their Black student associations about the African diaspora, like I'm sharing with you now, just to have some really open conversations around these issues that we're having in schools, in our communities. And so, because when you're open and honest, then we can start forgiveness, right? We can forgive and we can heal and we can move forward. And that's the goal, but we can't, heal and forgive if we can't address the issues. It doesn't work like that. No, brother. We have to address the issues. We have to address the trauma that has been caused. We have to really reconcile with ourselves and each other. And then we can move forward together and hold hands. So this is why I created Dr. J's Lounge, to start to really seriously have these conversations, because there's too much trauma with our Black kids, too much trauma. And they need to talk about these issues. They need courageous adults to say, look, this is how they see you because of XYZ. Nevertheless, you will persevere because of ABC, right? Those are the conversations we have at Dr. J's Lounge. That's the kind of conversation they have with me and with other scholars that I work with. I'm working with Dr. Deepa Srikanteya, who also works with South Asian immigrants and looking at some of the issues they are having around colorism and issues integrating US schools. So it's a space for scholars, academics, parents, students, teachers to come together and have real conversations about issues happening within our schools and come up with real solutions. So our kids so our students can stop leaving our schools damaged and ignorant about their history. Yeah, it stops. Yeah, those days are over, brother. Those days are over. We're educating our own now in our own spaces. And so it's welcome. Everybody's invited. Like I said, I give these workshops. I'm invited to give workshops, professional development trainings for teachers, for students, just to start having these real conversations. Yeah.
I always say it does start with the conversation because
Absolutely.
like you're saying, we really do need to addressing it. You have to start with the conversation. You have to start with hearing what everyone is thinking, correct that, or just, really offer your knowledge, your correct, your true knowledge about
Yeah.
your culture, about your history. Like I'm gonna keep talking about this because when I think about how
Good
I
for
went to
you.
this predominantly white middle school and I never got that understanding. And now that I'm doing things like the Race to Speak Up podcast and like my other events, hearing from different people like you who are educating others about the African diaspora, about African Nigerian identity, about just African American in general, like hearing these things, I should know that also. Like I should know that before,
Right.
but especially as a Black person in America. And
Yes.
it's just so sad to think about how there's a lot of people like me who don't necessarily know as much. But luckily, I'm having the privilege of talking to people like you, talking to you and hearing and getting more of an understanding about the African diaspora and having
Absolutely.
reading amazing books, which you guys definitely need to read. Some Black girls don't sit together in the cafeteria. It's
Yes. So.
she's holding it up right now. She's holding it up right now. It is
Oh
so
yes, there it is.
yeah, and then it's just like when I was reading it, I'm not gonna give spoiler alerts. I'm just gonna say like when I was reading it, I wasn't expecting how things turned out in the end. Between I can say wait, it's pronounced Shay, right? Shay
Yes, that's right. Shay. Uh-huh.
and Keisha. I wasn't expecting how things ended up, but you see, when it comes to bullying, I mean, we can kind of make an educated guess on how things may end up where it comes to um whether it be like results in fights or it results in the victim going through the pain, going through the depression, the anxiety.
Mm.
It's so unfortunate, but we it's just so sad thinking about it, it's so sad knowing like from my own experience going through bullying, knowing that you can these effects, the trauma is real. I went through
It's
depression,
real.
I went through anxiety, I went through paranoia just because I was hated on for the color of my skin, my beautiful
Wow.
melanin, that we as Black people have to continuously try to embrace because of how hard society is on us, with just for something as simple as our melanin, as simple as just walking outside with our beautiful afro, our beautiful curly hair, our beautiful features, our different diverse skin colors. It is so
Yes, we're so
gorgeous seeing.
fabulous, aren't we? We
Yeah.
really are beautiful people. We really are beautiful people. We
Yeah.
really, truly are. The diversity of skin. Black people come in every shade, from light to the blackest of black. It's amazing.
It
It's
is.
it's when I look at the diversity of Black people in terms of color, language, um, religion, so many, we're so different, but we're so alike. We're very truly diverse people in amazingly beautiful ways. But then when you look at us, like the colors, the diverse colors, it's just like, wow, I'm just amazed. I love Black people. I love people, but I love Black people. And it took a while for me to start to really even appreciate our Blackness, because we were taught, I have to be honest with you, growing up in the US, we're not taught to love being Black. It really depends. Let me say this, it depends on which circles you're in.
Yeah.
But in the circles that I grew up in, which were predominantly white, and for many of the circles that, and even predominantly Black, and for many of the circles that my participants reported, they were heterogeneous or predominantly white, they didn't have positive experiences with their Blackness. They didn't. They were taught to hate their Blackness. They were taught to question, dislike, disregard, lighten their Blackness. And it's just like, why? That's who that is. Why do you want to step out the humanity of the person? That's who that person is. So I just wish we need to change the narrative. We need to start educating about African kingdoms, African people, the African diaspora. We need to re-educate. We need to educate, re-educate, and then assess everybody.
It's so true.
Right?
It's
We
so
need to have
true.
these conversations. We do. We really do. And I think by that we can really have true healing, true reconciliation and healing. I truly believe that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. It's so true. You're reminding me, or you're making me think about another thing. So
What's
when
that?
when I was at my previous school, there was a few other like black kids, and like between, so it was literally just only a few. Like it say
Yeah.
in like a classroom of like 30, there was only like 3 black kids, including me. So at that school, I started realizing between the black kids that there was almost like just a little bit of competition to being liked also, which is another thing
Mm.
because of the fact that like we were getting hated on from others. We wanted to be liked. And I never tried to be competitive. I mean, if you were to see me at school, I'm always the one that's like, hey, how are you? I'm always trying to talk to everyone, just really make everyone feel comfortable. I never, if if you don't like me, that's completely fine. If people don't like each other, that's completely fine, just as long as you're respectful. But the thing is, there was almost this like competitive aspect to it, which is like, have you ever noticed that, say, like when you're in an environment where it's mainly white people and you as a few black people are used to being in this environment where you're still getting hated on by those white people and you just want to be loved. And so when you see another black person getting loved on by those other types of people, you may almost like get jealous of it, and that's why you hate on that like black person, because I feel like that's why I had felt like I was competing with another black person, and I wasn't even trying to be liked. I just felt like they were coming at me out of jealousy. That's why I
Mm.
almost felt uncomfortable within the black people that also went there too. It's so hard. But what do you think about that though?
So two things are coming to mind as you speak. One is the issue of being a token black person in a white environment where you are the black ambassador, right? For
Yeah.
all things black, right? You
Yeah.
know the history of black people. You speak up about social justice issues. You're the one that educates white people on black hair. You're the one that educates black people on soul food, or expected to, right? So that's that black token experience that my students, my research participants actually discussed. And then there's also this issue of this crab mentality within our own groups, right? So instead of us being more united, we should be more united in these environments, right? Especially
Yeah.
when we're the minority in
Yeah.
these environments, we should be united. We should be supporting each other, not tearing each other down. So when I hear you talk about that, I think about, have you ever seen crabs in a bucket?
Yeah.
What happens with crabs in a bucket? What happens when one crab is trying to get out of a bucket? What do the other crabs do?
They like fight each other and climb on top of each other.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the thing is, I like with that competition, I never wanted to compete, which made me like respond by like distancing myself. And I'm like, I don't want to distance myself from someone that looks like me as a minority in
Right.
this community. And I'm like,
Right.
I'm not competing with someone because I am 12 years old. I don't want to compete with someone at
Oh
that
man,
time.
that's
I
really
was 12 years
unfortunate.
old.
Look at how young you all are dealing with those issues. So let me ask you, were you able to talk with your parents about this, or any teachers, counselors about these types of issues?
That's actually another, I'm glad you brought that up because like,
Hmm.
so I would always, I tell my parents everything. I'm very, a lot of trust, a
That's
lot of
awesome.
love, and yeah, which is very good.
Just
But
tell your parents everything. Yes, let them help you think through these challenges.
yes.
Absolutely.
And
Hmm.
so the thing is like, because I went to that predominantly white school, I was used to like the racism, and I was kind of used to like certain things I was used to certain things I
Wow.
shouldn't be used to. So I was used to that competitiveness, the competition. Oh my God, what am I saying? The competition. So like I like when I was really bullied, when these three boys put my face onto those racist images, and like that was when I really that was the realization of how big this racism was. That moment made me realize the other racist things that happened before, even homophobic things too, which is another conversation, but like a lot of the different hate that went on at that school.
Intersectional oppression. Yeah. So the issues of homophobia with racism, with they're all intersecting these different oppression that you're experiencing.
Yeah. And
So
so
please continue.
when that like big moment of racism happened, when I was really like realizing that this was racism happening at that school, the microaggressions, the little slurs that I heard, that was when I realized that that was hate. That was wrong.
Yeah.
And then even like when I bring up like the like competition, the times of like competition between like me and my other minority people, like it it makes me realize these things. Like even looking back now, I'm like, wow, there was some competition, but yeah, I wasn't even competing. I was like off to the side. And then I'm like, I remember there's times where like, say I was the only person, like only Black person or only person of color in that classroom at that moment. And they bring up slavery, all the white kids turn to me. They turn to me. No, Dr. J, they would literally turn to me and they would be like, oh, what? Is it 400 years ago? No.
So
Are
I'm
we
not
really doing this
laughing
right now?
at you. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at how common this experience is. You are not the first, brother, and you will not be the last to report this experience to me. So let me ask you, when this sea of white students
Go ahead.
When the sea of white students turned and looked at your beautiful, dark, melanated skin within this context of transatlantic slavery, what did you do?
I'll be honest with you. I'm very vocal. What I did is I actually looked back at them and I said, what are you looking at? So luckily my little activist type of self at that time, that 12-year-old, that that like 11, 10, 12-year-old range said, what are you looking at? I'm making Dr. J laugh so hard right now, but that is exactly what I did.
Wait, Devin. So you said, what are you looking at? And what was their response?
Looking away. They actually some of them looked away. For those that I didn't look at and said that, I think those are the ones that were still looking. But regardless, the teachers over here talking about some, all right, next topic. Like, like, what? So me being the only Black person in that classroom at that moment, I was so uncomfortable. But the thing is, I don't want to feel uncomfortable. So I think I just naturally retaliated by saying that. And I can specifically remember that. All of what I told you, that was my memory of one specific thing, but there's still other times where that happened too. So it's really...
Okay. So some issues come up for me, but have you had your water? You know, in Dr. J's lounge, and we're having these courageous conversations. You have to stay hydrated. So if you have a bottle of water around,
I have my mug.
Hopefully it's filled with a nice refreshing liquid, preferably water. But make sure you drink about 8 glasses a day, okay? Stay hydrated. So some things come to mind as I hear you talk about your experience. Again, I'm not laughing at your experience. It's just, it's comical how common these experiences are. That's what's so amazing. And still, we're still having difficulty having these courageous conversations around these topics. So one thing that comes to mind for me is the teachers' discomfort around this historical experience. Right? So I don't know this teacher. I'm sure he's an excellent teacher. He means well. Don't know him. But when I hear that, however, what I think of is that this person has not addressed their own understandings around race and racism in the US, right? They have not unpacked their own racial identity as a white person. That's what that first tells me. This white teacher has not unpacked their own racial identity. In the US, remember I told you during if you take my course, you would know this. During the turn of the century, 18th, 19th century, we saw immigrants coming into Ellis Island. They came in from various European countries, Italy, Greece, Germany, various countries from Europe. They came here to the US. So over time, these white ethnics, these were different national and ethnic groups coming from Europe. These European ethnics assimilated into white society, right? They assimilated. They became part of the white majority, right? So it was more symbolic for these Irish to celebrate their ethnic identities. They do it on the March, the Irish holiday in March.
Wait, St. Patrick's Day? Wait,
Oh, St. Patrick's Day, thank you.
Yeah, St. Patrick's Day, okay.
I was struggling to remember, thank you, yes. St. Patrick's Day, exactly. Right, so they'll celebrate, that's when you see many white ethnics highlight their ethnic identity. But normally speaking, most Americans just see themselves as American. If you ask a white American, how do you identify? I'm American. Well, okay, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Right?
That's so true. I'm like, wait, let me stop and think. That is very true, Dr. J. But
this is research, brother.
Yeah.
This is research. Yes. Right. They haven't really had to really unpack their racial and ethnic identities, because they became part of the white majority, and they see that they are American. We're all Americans. If you're naturalized or if you're born here, you're American. Yes. But they didn't have to, they were the majority, right? They've always been the majority. So they haven't had to unpack, I'm white. What does that mean? What does that mean historically? What does that mean when I'm in a classroom of that's 99% white and 1% Black? What does that mean for me as a white teacher? They haven't had the opportunity to unpack that in their teacher education programs, in their homes, within their own communities. It just hasn't been a conversation. Now people are having more of these conversations, but most teachers and most white people, based on my experience and based on the experience from my participants, and based on you telling me right now, they haven't unpacked it. And so we have to unpack it. We have to understand, your identity as a white Irish man. What does that mean historically? What does that mean contemporarily? What do people see and think when they see you? Many people have not thought very deeply about this. And so it's in my workshops and in one-on-one consultations that I have with people on drjslounge.com, where we have these really serious conversations to get people to really reflect first. We've got to reflect on this. We have to read, we have to do some reading. We have to read some history. We're not just making this up. This is based on history, right? This is history. So let's unpack this history and understand how it's impacting us right now in our classrooms. And so that's what I tried to do with Shay and some of the experiences she's having with the Black students in the cafeteria. and some of the students and some of the experiences he's having with the SRO officer, Officer Glasstar. I wanted to ask you, Devin, what resonated with you the most in the book? What did you like the most? What really captured you?
That's a really good question because I think everything did. But
Mm.
I think actually it was really just Shay feeling like an outcast. I think it's really just
Mm.
that because I can relate to her like feeling like she has to sit with like the black kids or feeling like she has to sit with a certain type of kid in order to be seen as normal, whereas you're
Yeah.
still feeling like an outcast and still kind of wanting to sit alone away from others. I can relate to, others kind of coming at me for whatever reason and like just some type of other type of bullying where they come at you for something that you're doing or wearing. So
Right.
I can relate to that. I think it's really just relate to her feeling like an outcast, you know? Especially going back to my middle school. During like the time when I was really bullied, I did not want to sit with anyone, honestly. I mean, it was both me feeling way too uncomfortable, but on top of that, I didn't want to. I didn't feel welcomed. Whenever I don't feel
Oh,
like I'm
yeah.
welcomed, I don't think I will like I just won't, it's like I kind of shut down almost. And it's so because especially in the school environment, in fact, really only in the school environment. If I do ever feel like that, I just kind of shut down and I want to sit away from others. And so I can relate to Shay when she's talking about how, like, it feels like she has to sit here in order to seen as normal, but still being seen as an outcast. I think it's
And
really
so,
just that.
right. And so think about, so we're talking about feeling the social ostracism that Shay is experiencing. So think about how that impacts her academics. Can you study when you're crying inside? Think about it. Can you retain information when you're
Mhm.
concerned about, people talking about how black your skin is or that your food stinks? Can you retain information? Can you
Nope,
think
nope,
about what
nope.
can you think about what your teacher is telling you about quadratic equations when you're scared that somebody may jump you when you're walking home from school? No, you ain't thinking about that. You're thinking about how am I
You
going to
are
protect
not.
myself, right? How am I going to protect myself? And then for Shay, because she has Nigerian parents who are new immigrants to the U.S. who have issues and fear around immigration. So she has trepidation around sharing her experiences with them because they fear being deported. They fear being harassed by the police. So who is this young girl supposed to go to? Who is this 14, 15-year-old girl supposed to go to? The teachers, you know, don't understand what's going on. The parents are telling her to, just be proud of your culture, but aren't giving her necessarily the tools, the language to help her. Well, her Auntie Funke does.
That's true. That's true.
Auntie Funke,
Yeah.
yeah, she's a wise one. She's well read. She reads. She studies history. So she gives Shay some language and some history, but she uses it in a way that causes pain. It's like you punch me, I punch you back. So we have to have these conversations with our kids, with our young people, around around these very tough conversations. But once we have a better understanding of the history of how it's played out, we can then, like I say, reconcile and we can heal. We can do this. We really can do this. We
Yeah.
really can. But people have to be reflective. People have to take ownership of their history, take ownership of their knowledge, take ownership of their experiences, and share what they're open to sharing, right? And share and listen. Listen to others. It's not always about you. It's not always about you. Listen to what other people are experiencing. So now we listen to each other, we understand each other's perspective. Now, how can we move forward? This is what Dr. J's Lounge is about. How do we move forward? But we have to have these conversations. And so thank you, Devin. Thank you for inviting me to the podcast. I hope you enjoyed the book. I would love a review on Amazon or on the website, drjslounge.com. I would love a review to share with other people. And please share it with your colleagues, your friends, and let's seriously have these conversations, please. Because like I said, so many of our kids are leaving school ignorant and traumatized. It's not until they meet that Nigerian friend or that Ethiopian friend or that Jamaican friend or that, or that Dominican friend. They're like, oh, there are other Black people from other parts of the world. Yeah.
And it's so,
It's all the African diaspora. We've been dispersed from the continent of Africa. But you see, this is where the history, we have to relearn the history. We have to relearn because there's so much that we still don't know. So much about the trans-Saharan slave trade, specifically to India, there was a large population that were taken to India, and they are still there. The Sadiq people, they are still there today, but many people don't know about them, right? So we have so much to learn, so much to learn. And I'm excited to be part of the journey with people. It's my pleasure and my honor.
Knowledge is key. Knowledge is
yes, brother.
They teach that. Wait, they teach knowledge is key in school, but they don't teach about all these things in school. But wait. So, do you have any? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, and see, and you're exactly right. And so, this very brief history lesson that I've given you, it's not taught, unfortunately, in school. And this is why, like I said, I created Dr. J's Lounge as a space to start teaching, to start sharing, and to start discussing. And so, I'm giving workshops, I'm giving professional development trainings as well for students and teachers, to really start having these conversations and to learn, right? We're all learning. I'm still learning a lot, so we're all learning. So I'm enjoying these new online learning spaces. It's cool. Different, but it's cool.
Yeah, I think it is cool because I'm able to be connected and talking to you right now. You're in Maryland, I'm in New York. I'm like, okay. And then it's also funny because I know we did talk about this before. So the University of Maryland in College Park is actually one of the colleges I really want to go to. And you did a presentation there. In fact, why don't you tell us about some of your past presentations, and why don't you start with that one? Because I really want to hear
All right. We'll talk about that one really briefly. So I was invited by one of my colleagues actually, we went to graduate school together, and she recently learned about my book and she knew about my research, but she recently learned about my book, Some Black Girls Don't Sit Together in the Cafeteria, Dr. Deepa Srikanteya. And she invited me to come and speak about my research and my positionality in my research to her graduate school students. And it was a joy. So I had a chance to basically share my dissertation research with them from 2009, Of My Color But Not of My Kind, the racial and ethnic identity negotiations of 1.5 and second generation immigrants. I just took them through that process of collecting the data and also, what the major findings were of that study. And then we transitioned into a brief reading of the book, Some Black Girls, and a brief courageous conversation around, students, not issues of unbelonging among students. Even though some of the main takeaways that I got from that conversation with the graduate students at UMD was that, this book runs across racial and ethnic lines. Many of us have experienced feelings of, feeling ostracized because we were different. And so I had students of different racial backgrounds in the group, white students, Black students, Middle Eastern students, from what I could see physically, who identified with the themes of the book of not feeling like they belonged and having to reconcile it. So it was, and that's what I loved about it. I loved how anyone can relate to this, because most of us experienced that in high school, but this looks at it from an immigrant's perspective, a Black immigrant new to the US, how she's experiencing US school systems and US racial groups. It's just it's a new look, it's a different perspective. And we need more of these perspectives in schools because our schools are diversifying. Our schools are constantly diversifying. And so we need to be able to, teachers need to be aware of the diversity that exists within the Black population. And they need to learn how to educate them in a way that's affirming, that's equitable, and it's affirming. And so I'm hoping that through Dr. J's Lounge, I can partner with school systems and individual teachers that want to work through these issues in creative and meaningful ways.
Do you have plans to write any more books?
Yeah, brother, of course. As long as I have life and I'm using these hands until they hopefully they last me. I'm hoping that we have technology. Technology improves to like stem cell research to improve my hands. So as long as I have life, I'm writing. Yes. And so excuse me, Some Black Girls Teach Lessons is coming out in February 2022. It's going to the editor next week.
Ooh, okay.
Next week, going to the editor. So it is the continuation of the book, Some Black Girls Don't Sit Together in the Cafeteria. So what happens next between Shay and Keisha in the cafeteria? Do they come to blows? I mean, yo, did you read the end?
Yo.
She said, blocking her face with her left and with the right, she let her fist fly with a vicious punch aimed at my eyes. What's gonna happen? So yeah, we got book 2 coming out. I told the group at University of Maryland, I said, I'm gonna be the next Black Judy Blume, just popping out stories for a lifetime, because the participants gave me so much rich data, Devin. Hours and hours and hours of interviews. I was only able to unpack, less than 300 pages in my dissertation. I still have hundreds of pages that I have yet to really delve into. So I'm looking forward to, I've been enjoying, digging back into my data, finding new themes. So it's going to continue for a while. Absolutely. Keep telling these stories to help young people navigate these challenging issues, because we want our children healthy and whole, healthy, beautiful, whole Black children, not damaged and ignorant. No. So that's what we're about.
Also, why don't we talk about Zakosa Fitness? Can you tell us more about Zakosa Fitness? Because you do a lot, but tell us about Zakosa Fitness.
Yeah, multi-talented, absolutely. So Zakosa Fitness is a dance fitness program that I created with my daughter back in 2006, actually. I created it when I was in grad school. I was gaining weight like a mofo, Devin. Oh my goodness. When I was in grad school, I was just so busy working. I was teaching, I was writing, I was a single parent as well. So I was just very, very, very busy. And just gaining weight and could not get it, and I was a track runner in high school and in college, and I always danced. I love dancing. See me on Friday night, when I had a babysitter, see me at Crossroads. I would be dancing with the Africans. Next time I'll be dancing with the Caribbean Islanders. We'd be dancing to soca. Then we're dancing to makosa. Then we're dancing to dumbolo. Then we're dancing some salsa. I love music and I love dancing, but I was only able to get out every once in a while. Like I said, I was a single parent. I'm in grad school, so I didn't have a lot of free time. And so, but when I was able to go to Crossroads, it was a club that we had in Bladensburg, Maryland. That place was the spot for dance. Yo, Devin, for dancing. If you want to talk about music of the diaspora, hey, come to Crossroads, oh, we would dance. Hey, the sweat dripping from our bodies. Hey, chale. Devin, hey, my friend, hey, if you don't believe me, look up Dr. Shanika Coleman King or Dr. Bedelia Richards. These are all PhDs, highly intelligent, educated women that could, hey, see them on the dance floor. My brother, you wouldn't imagine we have PhDs. Bring us to the classroom and the dance floor. We'll take you on either one.
I love that. Multi-talented.
Yeah, but see, the challenge was that I couldn't do it often because, like I said, I was a single parent. I was in grad school. I mean, I was busy, and I had papers due, presentations, and so I couldn't get out there very often. But man, the way we would sweat, heck, I would have to take a change of clothes. Devin, the sweat dripping. And some people would drink alcohol, but because I was there for exercise, so it was water. I would drink every now and then, but really water, really water, right? So I wanted to create that outside of the club, and I needed to create that outside the club because I was gaining so much weight. And I knew I needed a fitness program that I could commit to. Right? Because I couldn't do, there's some classes, I'm like, this is boring. I'll give it 10 minutes and I'm out. I'm like, I need something that has me in here. Like, yes, honey. I needed something like that. And so, it started with Zumba. I learned about Zumba. I started dancing with some instructors here. Jennifer Lucio was an instructor here. I started taking her class at Gold's Gym. It was fabulous. Next thing I know, I'm in the front row, leading the classes with Jennifer. And so I went to Miami, Florida, and I got licensed and certified by Beto Perez, the creator of Zumba. And so I taught Zumba for like 10 years in the DMV. And then I went abroad. I taught in Jamaica. I taught in the Dominican Republic. But then I really wanted to a lot of the Zumba music, a lot of it with the drumming, the rhythms, a lot of them come from African rhythms and techniques. And so I wanted to really showcase our African histories and traditions, dance traditions and routines. And so I, taking what I had learned from Zumba, I started to really focus more on our dance traditions, like I said, Makossa and Dombolo. And so and then combining that with the dance traditions like soca, calypso that we have in the Caribbean. I mean, then we also dance the salsa as well, because it's also part of our roots. And so I wanted a class that would really bring together all those beautiful dance traditions, man. And so Zocosa Fitness was born. And my daughter and I have been teaching it on and off since 2006, and partly because I've had several health challenges that made it, man, you got to take care of your body. It put me out, different health challenges over the years that I had to stop, because of pain, just a lot of pain. But we've repackaged our work with Zocosa Fitness to focus more on stretching. We still dance, hey. We still côté rogue. We still dance. Absolutely, we dance, but we also do a lot more stretching and breathing and meditation as well, because we're getting older, honey. We're getting older, and we need to slow down. We need to slow down, because those knees don't work the way they used to anymore. So just being being more deliberate with the movements, and even dancing in the chair. So I use this chair for some of my participants who have issues with their knees or their back. We'll do movements in the chair. So we have the Zocosa chair as well. So I've learned over the years to adapt the dance steps to accommodate, different abilities different physical abilities. And it has mostly come from my own pain, right? My own physical challenges have forced me to be more open to people of different of varying physical abilities. So I work with people who are in wheelchairs to people who, who are just leaving the hospital and just need to slowly rebuild their strength. So it's been a blessing. And I'm really glad to have reconnected back to my roots, right? Reconnected back to my dance roots, my African traditions as well, because it's helped me to improve my own health. Because for a while I was eating a very Western diet in terms of a lot of processed foods, quick, get it, let's go. I got to hurry up and eat something so I can move on. That did a number on my body. It did a number to my stomach, my digestive system, so I had to make a change, not only physically, but also in terms of my diet. And so I'm more focused on eating our traditional foods, being more focused on eating a lot of greens and grains, really highlighting that for my clients as well. Go back to your traditional ways of eating. So I'll recommend a website called oldways.org. And they have this pyramid called the African Heritage Diet Pyramid that, really helps to educate people on the various types of healthy foods that we should be eating to have a healthier lifestyle. So, and part of what I'm doing with Zacosta Fitness, yes, we're still dancing, but we're also educating and re-educating about our traditional African foods, our ways of being active, of being socially interactive, being more communal, looking out for each other. It's all of that is embraced in the African heritage diet. It's not just about food, it's about social interactions as well, right? So all of this embraced there. So I've been recommending that site and those teachings to help people get healthier, become healthier, because the way that we're living in this country, it's not for the betterment of us. So we have to go back to what our ancestors taught us about caring for each other, loving one another, taking care of ourselves mentally, physically, spiritually, in other ways, being educated, reading to each other, learning about our histories, teaching our histories. We have to go back to those traditional ways of being to heal, because we've been traumatized here. We've been traumatized. Many of us continues to be traumatized. And so I'm hoping that Dr. J's Lounge serves as a platform for, like I said, everyone who wants to really start to address these issues around race, identity, and immigration in a safe space, but in a way that you will be challenged to reflect on your role and how you can make significant changes for the betterment of all of us. Yeah. So ambitious goals. We're still new, and it's a small cohort of professionals, but we're steadily building. And so I appreciate these opportunities to come out and talk to people about the work that we're doing, the books that we're publishing, the workshops that we're giving, the professional development trainings that we're providing. So I look forward to more collaborations.
Well, Dr. J, thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. The last question for you is, how can people find you? Tell us your social media platforms and your website.
Yes, so you can find me on drjslounge.com. You can subscribe to the website and email me through there. You can also find me on Instagram. Y'all gotta bear with me. I'm trying. This social media is another job. But I am trying, to try to stay active. So just bear with me, because like I said, I need technology to improve for people who have hand disabilities. So it's challenging, but I am trying to stay active. So just bear with me. If you comment, I definitely try to respond. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But you can find me at Dr. J's Lounge on Instagram and Facebook. And also, if you want to come dance with us, come work out with us, come relieve some stress. So, hey, come relieve some stress. and come dance. We have Zucosa fitness classes. We're going to have pre-recorded classes released in February 2022. So subscribe to have access to those classes. And then we have an online class scheduled for the third Sunday of January. If you have a calendar in front of you, you can pull it out and let me know that date again. I appreciate it. But third Sundays, we are having a 90-minute class online to dance with people to stay connected through COVID. You know, it's been challenging with COVID, but we're back online again on third Sundays.
January 16th, 2021. Oh, 2022.
What's that?
January 16th, 2022. So, well, thank you again for joining us today, Dr. J. This is a great conversation.
Thank you. I enjoyed it as well. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to the next courageous conversation.
And thank you for all who are listening. I hope to see you guys at future Race to Speak Up podcasts. If you have any questions about the Race to Speak Up podcast, feel free to contact me at racetospeakup@gmail.com. Make sure to follow at Race to Speak Up on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for updates on future podcasts. And join the Humanity Rising movement. Humanity Rising offers scholarships for students making a difference in the world through service. Visit www.humanityrising.org for more information. And remember to ask yourself this question: how do you race to speak up?